The genealogy website said I had a close match, a sibling. After 35 years of thinking I was alone in this world, I had a brother. His profile showed limited information, but there was a business email. I sat staring at the send button for hours before I typed, "This might sound insane, but I think we're related." His response came back in 10 minutes. "Adam, I've been waiting for this message my entire life. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from." My name is Adam Thompson. I'm 35 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I was the only person in this world who shared my DNA. I was wrong, dead wrong. Growing up adopted isn't something you just get over. It follows you like a shadow, always there in the back of your mind, whispering questions you're not sure you want answered. Michael and Linda Thompson gave me everything they could: love, opportunity, a good education, but they couldn't give me the one thing I craved most: the knowledge of where I came from. I was adopted from Willowbrook Children's Home when I was sick. What I didn't know until much later was that there had been 2 boys in that car accident, 2 brothers, and somehow we'd been separated. Last Christmas, my wife Emma gave me a DNA test kit. "Just spit in the tube," she said. "What's the worst that could happen?" 6 weeks later, I found out. I was in my home office on a Thursday evening going through emails after a long day at the construction site when the notification popped up on my phone. "Your Genesis DNA results are ready." I almost ignored it. I'd honestly forgotten I'd even taken the test, but something made me click that link. The first page was standard stuff: 52% Irish, 31% German, 17% Scandinavian. Nothing surprising there, but then I scrolled down to the section labeled Close Family Matches. My heart stopped. There it was, in black and white. Predicted relationship, full sibling. Confidence, 99.7%. The name next to it was David R. The profile was mostly private, but there was one public piece of information: a business email address ending in @richardsonindustries.com. I stared at that screen for I don't know how long. A brother. I had a brother. Not some distant cousin or half-relative, but a full-blooded sibling who shared the same parents, the same tragic beginning. My hands were shaking as I opened a new email. I must have typed and deleted a dozen messages before I finally settled on, "This might sound insane, but I think we're related. My name is Adam Thompson. I was adopted from Willowbrook Children's Home in 1991, and according to Genesis DNA, we're brothers. If this is a mistake, I apologize for bothering you." I hit send before I could change my mind. Then I waited and waited. 10 minutes felt like 10 hours. Then my phone buzzed. "Adam, I've been waiting for this message my entire life." That was it. 12 words that changed everything. Then came another message. "Can we talk? Tonight I'm in Seattle, but I can call you right now if that works." My phone rang 30 seconds later. "Adam?" The voice was deeper than mine, but there was something familiar about it, something that made my chest tighten. "Is it really you?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "I mean, the DNA test says we're brothers, but I don't remember much from before the adoption." "You were 3 when we were separated," he said, and I could hear the emotion in his voice. "I was 5. I've been looking for you for 32 years. The conversation lasted 4 hours. We talked until sunrise, sharing memories, trying to piece together our childhood. David remembered things I'd forgotten. How I lined up my toy cars by color. How I was terrified of thunderstorms. The stuffed elephant I carried everywhere, named Mr. Peanuts. "You remember Mr. Peanuts?" I whispered, and suddenly I was crying. "I remember everything about you," David said. "When they told me you'd been placed with a family and I couldn't see you, I promised I'd find you when I grew up." That's when he told me what he'd become. David Richardson, CEO of Richardson Industries, worth over $500 million. We arranged to meet the following weekend in Denver, halfway between Phoenix and Seattle. Neutral territory, we both agreed, though I think we were both terrified that somehow this was all a dream. The flight to Denver was the longest 2 hours of my life. When David walked through those doors, time stopped. It was like looking in a funhouse mirror, the same features arranged on a different face. He was taller than I expected, and he carried himself with CEO confidence. But when he saw me, all that composure cracked. His eyes filled with tears, and he crossed the room in 6 long strides. "Adam," he said, and then we were hugging like we'd never been separated. We talked for hours that first day. David told me about the years after our separation, how he'd been placed in a series of foster homes before finally being adopted by the Richardsons when he was 8. How he'd excelled in school partly because he was smart, but mostly because achievement was the only thing that made the emptiness bearable. How he'd built his company from nothing, driven by a need to be successful enough to find me someday. I told him about the Thompsons, about growing up in Phoenix, about my construction business, about Emma, about how I'd always felt like something was missing but could never name what it was. "I used to have nightmares," David said as we walked along the hotel's garden path. "Dreams where I could hear you crying, but I couldn't find you. I'd wake up in cold sweats, feeling like I'd failed you somehow." "I had the opposite problem," I told him. "I'd dream about having a brother, but when I woke up, I could never remember his face. The therapist said it was normal for adopted kids to create imaginary siblings." "Not imaginary," David said softly. "Just missing." That weekend was the beginning of everything. We exchanged phone numbers, addresses, social media profiles. David insisted on flying Emma and me to Seattle the following month so I could see his world, meet Sarah, see what he'd built. Richardson Industries was impressive, a gleaming tower with David's name on the building. But what struck me most was how he introduced me. "This is my brother Adam. I've been looking for him for over 30 years. Sarah was wonderful and clearly thrilled to meet the brother David had told her about for 15 years. But it was David's office that truly showed me what our separation had meant. On his desk was a small framed picture from Willowbrook, 2 little boys on a swing set, the older one pushing the younger one. "Mrs. Patterson gave this to me the day they moved me to foster care," he said. "I've kept it all these years." I reached into my backpack and pulled out Mr. Peanuts, miraculously preserved by my adoptive mother. David's face went white. Then he was crying, clutching the elephant like it was made of gold. That night, David and Sarah insisted Emma and I stay at their house instead of the hotel. Their guest room was bigger than our entire first apartment, with a view of Elliott Bay that probably cost more than I make in a year. But it wasn't the luxury that got to me. It was the family photos lining the hallway. Photos of David and Sarah's wedding, their kids' birthdays, Christmas mornings, family vacations. All the moments I'd missed, all the celebrations and milestones and ordinary Tuesday evenings that we should have shared. "I know what you're thinking," David said, finding me in the hallway at 2 a.m. staring at a photo of him and Sarah with their twins. "And you need to stop." "Do I?" I asked. "Because I'm thinking about 32 years, David. 32 years of birthdays and Christmases and graduations and weddings. 32 years of you building this incredible life while I had no idea you even existed." "You think I don't know that?" he said, his voice fierce. "You think I haven't counted every single day? Adam, I've made more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and none of it means anything compared to this. Compared to having you back." He was quiet for a moment, then continued. "Sarah and I have been trying to have another baby for 3 years. We've done fertility treatments, adoption consultations, everything. And you know what I told her last month? I said maybe we're not meant to expand our family right now. Maybe God has other plans." "What do you mean?" "I mean you, Adam. You're my family. Emma is my sister-in-law now, and someday when you and Emma have kids, they'll be my nieces and nephews. This isn't about replacing the time we lost. It's about making the most of the time we have left." The next morning, David made an announcement that shocked everyone. He was taking his first real vacation in 15 years to spend time with his brother. "But sir," his assistant Elena Wilson protested, "the Morrison deal closes next month. James Moore can handle it," David said firmly. "Family comes first." Those 3 weeks were the best of my adult life. We went fishing, played miniature golf, watched baseball games. We took a road trip to the Grand Canyon and spent hours filling in 32 years' worth of conversations. We also visited Willowbrook Children's Home. The current director, Mrs. Rodriguez, pulled our files and showed us photos. 2 scared little boys clinging to each other. In one picture, David was reading me a book. In another, we were sharing a cookie, David carefully breaking it in half. "You were here together for 6 months after the accident," she told us. David was very protective, and Adam rarely spoke to anyone except his brother. According to records, there were families interested in adopting both boys together, but David was having trauma responses, acting out, refusing to sleep alone, getting upset when separated from Adam. David's face went pale. "So it's my fault we were separated?" "No," I said firmly. "You were 5 years old and had just lost your parents. You were protecting me." That evening, sitting in my backyard while Emma and Sarah made dinner, David asked me something I'd been wondering about myself. "Do you ever think about them? Our parents?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "Just flashes. A woman's voice singing, big hands lifting me up. You remember more, don't you?" David nodded slowly. "Mom made pancakes on Sunday mornings. Dad read us stories before bed. They were planning to take us to Disneyland for my 6th birthday. The accident happened 2 weeks before." "Drunk driver ran a red light," I said, recalling the police report. "The paramedics said you wouldn't let them take me to a different ambulance. You kept screaming that we had to stay together." We sat in silence for a while, watching the sunset. Finally, David spoke again. "I need to tell you something, Adam. When I started making real money, I hired investigators to find out everything about the accident, our parents, why we were separated." I waited. "The Richardsons who adopted me? They specifically requested a child whose biological family was completely gone. They knew about you, but they said they weren't interested in maintaining contact. They wanted me to see them as my only family." I felt like he'd punched me. "They kept us apart on purpose?" "Not maliciously, but they thought contact with you would make bonding harder." "Did it work?" David looked at me with the saddest smile. "No, I never stopped missing you. I think that's why I drove myself so hard. I was trying to be successful enough for both of us." "Do they know you found me?" "They died 5 years ago," David said quietly. "I never got to ask them why." As our time together was ending, David made me an unexpected offer. "I want you to come work for me," he said over breakfast. "David, I don't know anything about tech." "Not in tech. In construction. Richardson Industries wants to expand into commercial development. I want you to head that division." I stared at him. "You're offering me a job because I'm your brother. I'm offering you a job because you're good at what you do, and I trust you more than anyone. The fact that you're my brother is just a bonus." "I need time to think," I said. "Take all the time you need," David replied. "But Adam, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if you change your mind, the job is yours." That was 6 months ago. Last week, Emma and I put our house on the market. Richardson Industries' construction division needs a director, and 35 years is long enough to be separated from your brother. David called me yesterday, excited about our first joint Thanksgiving. "Sarah's already warned the caterer we'll need a bigger table," he said, laughing. As I pack up my Phoenix life and prepare for Seattle, I keep thinking about that DNA test I almost didn't take, about the email I almost didn't send, about all the almost that could have kept me from finding the other half of my soul. People talk about soulmates like they're romantic partners, but I think they're wrong. I think soulmates are the people who make you feel whole again, who fill in the missing pieces you didn't even know were gone. David is my soulmate, not in a romantic sense, but in the deepest, most fundamental way possible. We're two parts of the same original whole, separated by tragedy and time, but never really apart. The genealogy website was right. I did have a close match, a sibling. What it couldn't capture in its algorithms and percentages was how finding that match would change everything. How it would take a 35-year-old man who thought he was content with his solitary life and show him what he'd been missing all along. I'm Adam Thompson, soon to be Adam Thompson Richardson, because David insisted we both hyphenate our names. "We're brothers," he said. "We should share a name." And for the first time in my life, I'm not alone in this world. If you've ever felt like something was missing, if you've ever wondered about the family you've lost or never knew, don't give up hope. Sometimes the people we're meant to find are looking for us too. And sometimes all it takes is the courage to send one email, to reach out into the void and whisper, "Are you there?" Because somewhere someone might be whispering back, "I've been waiting for you my whole life."